in the wilderness. Give me a heart like David, Lord, be my defense, so I can face my giants with confidence. Yeah! Give me faith like Daniel in the lion's den. Give me hope like Moses in the wilderness. Give me a heart like David, Lord, be my defense, so I
just have a couple of brief comments, and then I'll turn it over to the committee. As many of you probably know, my main work in the past has been in higher education administration. And one of the roles that I have in that is as part of an evaluation team for the Association of Theological Schools, where we visit theological schools throughout the United States and Canada for their accreditation and reaccreditation. And part of what we do, or part of that process, is for them to do a self-study, to look at every aspect of that educational experience, from leadership to staffing to faculty to students, every element of that. And we always found that that's a good time for the school to do a self-evaluation, to really pay attention to the reality that they are living in. And my hope was that this self-study for us, this strategic plan, would be a self-study. It would give us an opportunity to look at the parish and various aspects of the parish, to see what we are doing well, and to, in a sense, congratulate ourselves and to continue doing those things well, but also to identify things that we're not doing so well, and then to be able to address them in a straightforward and an honest fashion, so that we can work together for the upbuilding of the parish. A number of people since I've arrived asked me, well, what is your vision for the parish? My vision for the parish is to have a vibrant Catholic community that addresses every aspect of our lives, from birth, conception, to natural death. To provide an atmosphere, an environment in which people can grow in their love of God and become aware of who they are before God, and be willing to be witnesses and disciples of the Lord, to encourage other people to pay attention to God in their lives as well. The only way to do that is with you. The friars can't do that. You have to do that. So my hope, my dream is that this strategic planning process will give us that opportunity to look at ourselves in the mirror, to be aware of who we are, and to encourage one another to grow more fully into that dynamic Catholic community that the Lord wishes us to be. We have indications all over the place that we are a very dynamic community, but we can't just rest on what we're doing. I think we have to continue to grow. So thank you very much for your willingness to be part of this listening sessions, to be part of the planning session, so together we can grow into that community that God wishes Good Shepherd to be. So
how many people were either able to attend the parish town hall in November or were able to watch it online? Awesome. So this will make this next step a lot easier. All right. So as you walked in, you were greeted with the agenda for today. So that's up here. We're going to spend time kind of sharing with you the thoughts of where we've been so far over the past 9 months. And then we're going to let you guys break out into your individual work groups to really start delving into your specific strategic area. So our goal is to give you as much time as your small groups as possible. So at the beginning of this process, we really started with the question of why. So that involved bringing the group of the staff members, Ken, myself, Jan led our effort to really reaffirm the mission and vision statements. So many of you have seen this a couple of times. I think we're working on publicizing more of the reaffirm mission. You're aware that we added, nourished at the table of the Lord, to really bring that Catholic component into this. And then with the strategic vision, as Father Mike so eloquently pointed out, we really want Good Shepherd to be a faith-filled Catholic community, inspired by the Holy Spirit, serving God's people, and leading others to Christ. So a lot of the work that we're going to be embarking on today and over the next 3 years is really how do we substantiate that statement, and how do we say, you know, this is where we're going and this is how we've been there. So, you know, when we look at the process that we went through, really there's the 5 steps. The why, which we talked about. Let's see, are we going to build this? Yes. We talked about the what. So we went through and did this strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. So in your work groups, you guys will get kind of the summary of the feedback we got through that. Then we asked the question, so what? So we discerned through the SWOT feedback and identified the 6 strategic priorities. And really, the committee spent a lot of time crafting the defining statements that should help guide the work of each of these priorities. And now we're in the now what stage. So this is where today we're commissioning each of the 6 work groups. And this is where I think all the magic is really going to happen as we put together these measures of success and also the action plans within these work groups. And then at the culmination, we'll say, how did we do? So, you know, each year we're going to start evaluating, you know, how are we doing on these measures of success. The strategic planning, the Parish Advisory Council, who many are here today, will really kind of start taking ownership of the strategic plan and various elements, while the Finance Council and the Mission and Outreach Council will also have specific inputs and governance over various items. So, you know, the goal is that this is a living, breathing document, and each year we can say, how did we do, and where are we going next? So it's meant to be that living document. So we're excited that y'all are all here to give this living document breath. And I'm going to pass it over to Ken.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to reiterate a couple things. One, thanks to everyone in this room who's volunteered or voluntold to be part of this process. It is important, and there's been a lot of people that have been engaged up through now, but you guys are also new to, some of you are new to this process and will be engaged from here and a long point forward, so we appreciate that. Second thing, I really want to recognize Jan Titsworth and Karen and Donna Campbell and the rest of the committee who have spent a lot of time putting together a lot of effort and work to get us to where we are today. So I know most of you realize that, but I just want to thank you guys for all you've done. So the SWOT analysis, I'm not going to go through all this because it was in the town hall, but a couple of things I really want to reiterate with it is, so these was, you know, Father Mike challenged us to kind of summarize, you know, 800 bits of information and 100 people that we talked to through 16 sessions, and say, what did they tell you? So this is what you see, right? So we have the strengths and the opportunities on this page. So these are areas where we were either doing good at or we think we have the ability to do good at, whether they're internally focused or externally focused. And as Karen mentioned, you'll all get a page for each of your areas that lays out these words as well as others. So you'll see more of these, but this was kind of the summary, way that we were able to pull together the information. These are important. So as you go through your strategic planning priority and your focus areas and action plans, just please keep in mind that this is the feedback of a large group from the parish and what their inputs were as far as how we're doing. So please keep those things in mind. And they ought to guide, your discussions and how you look at your action items and focus areas. The weaknesses and threats are just the other side of this. This is where, as Father Mike mentioned, maybe areas we can improve. Again, you'll see some of these within your pages that we hand out of the SWOT analysis. And then threats are areas, again, where it may not be something we're not necessarily doing bad at, but it's something externally that could impact us. And then finally, this ought to look familiar. If you look around at the tables, you'll see all the priorities in the groups that you're part of. A couple of things here. One, communication and technology are not individual groups. Those are overarching to every group, and I think as we went through the SWOT analysis and discussions, we heard a lot of things around communication and technology that really were broader than one individual group. So as you go through the process, you'll each have a page on communication and technology as well as your individual group, so you understand what the comments were around that. But I think it's important for us to keep in mind that it is overarching. It does impact every area. And then the individual groups, I'm going to just go through those real quickly on the next slide. So each of those are the teams that we have here. And as Karen mentioned, we spend a lot of time with the defining statements. And I'm just going to read those real quickly if I can. So leadership in government is create an environment that supports staff and lay leaders by providing resources, ideas, and information across functions, departments, ministries. Engagement in ministry, foster a welcoming environment that encourages active stewardship, time, talent, and treasure, and discipleship through service and spiritual growth. Land and facilities, ensure that physical resources that have been provided to Good Shepherd support our mission and are being used to their maximum potential. Commitment to Catholic education, champion the unique benefits of Catholic education through robust partnership with schools, serving our parish and increased visibility, service opportunities, and support for students attending GSCC. Spiritually nurture the family unit, support the spiritual growth of families of all stages of life, especially those with school-aged children, through lifelong faith formation, social activities, and opportunities to serve the community together. And then finally, love of Eucharist and liturgy, develop a deeper appreciation and understanding of the Eucharist as Christ's true presence through adoration or adaptions to the physical space, opportunities for reverence and reflection and education. A couple things here, just again, keep in mind. So you guys are all individual work groups, but you'll figure out pretty quickly on, or at least we did, as we were looking at focus areas and potential action plans, some things really cross each group. And I think that's the one thing I want to make sure we're aware of. And a good example, I have in my mind, I'm part of the Finance Council as well, as I think about, engagement in ministry includes stewardship, right? And it includes time, talent, and treasure. And from a finance perspective, that treasure for sure fits into what we look at. And in land and facilities, one of the action items we'll likely have is how do we look at deferred maintenance areas, projects, things like that may require additional resources from parishioners. So as we think of action plans, they may impact us more directly as a work group, but also may reach across to another group. So I think just keep those things in mind. From a governance perspective, we really haven't talked exactly about how do you communicate across, but I think these meetings and the periodic updates and things along that line are important. I think you'll also see that many of the councils have individuals that are part of various work groups for that very reason as well. So, for example, the Finance Council has representatives in several of these work groups. So as we meet as a council, we can discuss what action items came up from the other work groups. But that's important for all of us to realize. So with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to Jan. Thank you.
Good morning. It is so exciting to see this room full of eager, excited people to engage in this process. So I am so glad that you're here this morning. And thanks to Karen and Ken for all your leadership and for helping to review our progress thus far. So I'm sure you're sitting here wondering, well, what is my role as part of these strategic initiative work groups? And basically, the Strategic Planning Committee identified these focus areas, did all of this background research, but recognized that in order to craft the most effective action plans, it was so important to draw upon the passion and the expertise of folks who are engaged in the work. And so now the strategic work groups need to develop the roadmap that's going to accomplish those defining statements that Ken shared with us just a moment ago. So together, all of us will be creating a comprehensive 3-year plan to attain the vision, to fulfill the vision that Karen mentioned at the start of the presentation. And so as a work group, you're charged with developing the plan for your specific strategic priority area. And the first thing you'll want to do is determine what success will look like. So the measures of success, right? What do we hope to accomplish by 2025? And how will we measure our annual process there? So thinking through that initially. Then, once you've identified those measures of success, you'll want to identify strategies that are going to lead you down the path towards that success. And the strategies are those high-level activities that you'll engage in, to move forward. We're all familiar with SMART goals, but those tenets of SMART can also be attained to or attached to strategies as well, right? So you want to make sure that as you're identifying your strategies, that they are attainable, that they are relevant, that they are time-bound, and there's some sort of measure. And I'll show you in just a second, how you can organize your thoughts that way. So, as you're working on the strategy process, be as smart as possible. And also, I just wanted to say that, as you engage in strategy development, you'll do some brainstorming, and you'll come up with tons of different ideas. And it's so important to be realistic about what can be accomplished, right? Because, we're going to be on fire, and we're going to want to see all these things happen. But truly, remember to ask yourself, what's going to have the most impact? What truly are the priorities? I'd much rather that we have 2 or 3 strategies that are well developed and implemented than 5 or 6 aspirational things that just kind of percolate along, right? We've all heard of the rule of 3. And so recognize that, in order to be able to move these things forward with a combination of, staff time and volunteer time and council engagement or whatever, what's really feasible over the course of a given point in time, and be realistic about that. So in order to provide some uniformity across groups, we've created this template, which is difficult to see. I recognize it's an eye chart here, and you'll receive copies of these in your breakout session later this morning. But basically, kind of in the middle of that area is where we'll capture our measures of success, right? We're thinking about, what is it that we hope to achieve by 2025? In a corporate environment, you may be familiar with these as KPIs, right? So what are those measures? And then, what data exists, what sources exist for us to capture some information about how we're doing there, right? So we have a column for our baseline, which is, as of the outset, what is that data? And then on an annual basis, where has that, what is that count, or what is that measure look like, and a way to identify what those data sources are, so that as the Pastoral Advisory Council is managing the overall implementation of this plan, that we all have that familiar structure together. Then below that, there's opportunities to identify a strategy and those high-level activities for the different focus areas that you'll have. And you'll notice here that there's a column for assigned to, time frame, and outcomes. So that helps us thinking about being smart with our strategy. So we identify that high-level activity, and then we make sure that it has someone who is going to provide oversight to that. It may be at the strategy level. It may be that it's assigned to a council or a ministry or a staff team, or that there's a specific volunteer leader. And then the time frame for the strategy may be somewhat general, right? First 6 months of 2022, or third quarter 2022, or something like that. And then the outcomes would be the desired result of that strategy. As we implement this strategy, what are the outcomes that we really hope to see happen? Then, below that are your action steps, your tactics, those specific tasks who's going to do what by when. And here is where, under assigned to, you want to be pretty specific about whose responsibility is this specific action step. And the time frame is going to be more precise. So, kind of thinking chronologically what builds upon another step, and make sure that you have that well defined so that you're able to kind of check off those boxes as complete and know that that task has been accomplished. And there may not be a specific outcome for each individual action step, and that's okay. I think, that's where you as a work group need to identify what's going to help us really guide our implementation process the best way. And we wanted to make sure that we were allowing each of the work groups to determine, well, how many strategies and how many action steps should be involved in their specific work. So we just kind of set the shell there with one, and feel free to add more rows as needed. But remember that rule of 3 so that you'll be able to be successful as you embark on this. So I know this may seem a little overwhelming, and I want to caution you that this is a 3-month planning process. So how do you eat the elephant? One bite at a time, right? And so we've crafted this timeline to help you recognize that, oh my gosh, we don't have to come up with a 3-year plan in the next 45 minutes, right? This is a 3-month process. And I just wanted to call a few key target dates to your attention before we break out. And you notice that we've identified February 16th as kind of about a month from today as that point where we want to have the measures of success defined and the 2022 plan. So just focusing on how we're going to measure our success, and then what are we going to do in 2022. And there'll be a check-in the week of February 7th for the parishioner leads and the staff sponsors to come together and kind of, brief each other about where things stand. And to Ken's point about, some of these things impact other areas, those check-ins are intended to be that opportunity for, a voice from each of the strategic initiative work groups to share with each other what's going on so that we are aligned and so that we can provide each other feedback. Someone may have an aha moment if they're not that close to the work that could be really valuable to that specific work group. Then continuing on, late in February, we'll have another work group check-in, and we'll be able to share our progress that we're making towards those the strategies and action plans for 2023, 2024, and 2025. And then at the end of March, the goal is for all of us to come back together again, along with representatives from the different councils, so that we can share with each other, the template. Here's what our action plan, our roadmap looks like at this point in time, so that we can receive feedback from each other and we can support one another and provide affirmation to one another, that we're doing things in the appropriate manner. So that's really key there. And then, the hope is that by the beginning of April, all work groups will be able to provide me with their strategies and action steps for 2023, 2024, and 2025, so that we have one comprehensive 3-year plan ready to be approved and adopted at the end of April. April 25th is kind of that target date. And that sets us up in good stead to be able to present the comprehensive plan at the parish town hall meeting in May. So that's kind of, and Easter happens in the middle of all this. So that's kind of what the thinking has been in the timeline that guides our work. So I know there's a lot of skeptics out there who say, I've been part of strategic planning processes, and you spend all this time and you create this plan, and then it just sits on a shelf and it just gathers dust. And that's not our intention here. Our intention here, as Karen mentioned, is for this plan to be a living and working document. And the way that happens is by integrating the plan elements into the ongoing operation of the parish. And so the Pastoral Advisory Council will be providing this comprehensive oversight to make sure that the 3-year plan is successfully adopted. They'll kind of take ownership after the plan adoption to, have a review process. How are we doing towards our goals? On an annual basis, are there things that we need to be revisiting about the strategies and action steps, et cetera? Also, each one of the strategic priority areas has been adopted by one or more of our existing councils, again, because those councils are doing work that a lot of these strategies and action items align with, and it's appropriate for strategies and action items to live within those councils. And so it's appropriate to be assigning things to the councils for action. Then we have staff sponsors who are our internal champions and liaisons. And depending on the action steps that are identified, there are action steps that will likely align with staff responsibilities, either the liaison's responsibility or the other areas of the parish staff. And so by having those staff sponsors, we can ensure that there's good communication and understanding and sharing of information between all of the entities. And then finally, the bedrock of this is that Good Shepherd Catholic community involvement. And each of you may feel called to take the lead on a specific strategy or action step. And that's great. But remember also that there's ministries and active volunteers outside of this room who can and should be part of the work. So don't feel like you have to do it all. This is the opportunity to really identify, where is the best place for these different action items to live, and how do I have that conversation so that we're moving in the right direction. Not to think of this as something that is an add-on necessarily to the work that's being done, but rather refocusing what the priority might be in a specific area. So something to consider there. All right, so again, how do you eat the elephant? One bite at a time. And so in just a few minutes, you're going to move to your breakout sessions, and that way you can familiarize yourself more with your strategic priority area. So here are the things for you to keep in mind this morning. And remember that this breakout session is really intended to be an overview. Don't feel like you are going to get deeply into the information this morning. If you leave with a good overview of all that has been done to date and the specific defining statement and focus areas that you are charged with moving forward, and kind of start that brainstorm process about those measures of success in 2022, you're right on target. So, becoming familiar with those defining statements and the focus areas that the Strategic Planning Committee's identified. And also, as Ken mentioned, kind of reviewing what are those SWOT themes that are relevant to your specific priority area, so that you understand, how did the Strategic Planning Committee really come up with these focus areas? Because it's because they looked at 800 lines of data and really, did some deep dive there. But then begin thinking about, what does success look like in 2025? And what data should we be capturing to measure our success in that way? And then, as time permits, beginning to do some brainstorming about your potential strategies. And then, going forward, here's what you should be keeping in mind. Between now and the next 3 weeks or so, you want to firm up those measures of success and really focus on 2022. And again, remember the rule of 3, be realistic and really focus on what's going to have the most impact. And then in mid-February and into March, that's the time to really focus in more on 2023 and beyond. So I know that this has been a lot for you to absorb, and I thank you so much for your commitment to the process. And before we move forward, I just wanted to provide an opportunity, Carrie and Ken and I wanted to provide an opportunity for you to ask any questions. Want you to feel that you are that you've had an opportunity to ask anything that might be on your mind. Okay, I can really sense that there's excitement and engagement wanting to go and have those small group discussions, right? Yes. So what time is it now? It's 10:05, so we're a little bit ahead of our schedule, which is good because the timeline has been pretty aggressive for the amount of time that you all had to spend together in your breakout groups. So I would say at this point in time, go ahead and move into breakout groups and let's plan to be back here instead of at 11, let's plan to be back here at 11:10. And that gives you, kind of a full hour to spend time together. If you need to take a break between now and on your way to the rooms, feel free to do that. Donna, how do people know which room they're gathering in?
So the staff sponsor or Krishna lead should know where the breakout room is. They basically start here off this door and work their way around. They're all on the second floor. So they should be big enough to spread out and do what you need to do.
Okay, that sounds great. So feel free to grab snacks, right? We all work better when we have snacks with us. So grab snacks, head to your breakout groups, and I'll look forward to seeing you back in this room at 11:10.